Why did Rome fall? Why did the Spanish Empire collapse? Why did the Ottoman Sultanate crumble? Ask any historian, they'll talk about wars, invasions, corruption. But there's a pattern they always miss. Every single one of these empires destroyed their own currency first. The collapse didn't start with soldiers. It started with coins. This is the Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. Today, the world is conducting the largest financial experiment in history. Every major economy is diluting, debasing, and manipulating its own money. And governments, politicians, economists all say the same thing. This time is different. But history shows it never is. Every empire made the same mistake, and every empire suffered the same fate. The story begins in 201 BCE. Rome mints the denarius, 95% pure silver, bright, heavy, valuable. This coin isn't just a payment tool, it's a symbol of trust, stability, and Roman power. Merchants across the Mediterranean accept it without question. Even beyond the empire's borders, the denarius is the gold standard, because everyone knows this money is real. But as the empire grows, so do the costs. Legions need to be paid, roads need to be built, borders need to be defended, and Rome's enemies never rest. Germanic tribes from the north, Parthians from the east, every front tears a piece from the imperial treasury. During Emperor Augustus's reign, the denarius is still 95% silver. But by the 200s CE, Rome faces a problem. Not enough silver, not enough money to pay the soldiers. And raising taxes is always dangerous. Revolts, coups, chaos. So Rome discovers the oldest and deadliest financial trick in history: currency debasement. Emperors collect the coins, melt them down, and mix them with cheaper metals, bronze, copper, tin. Then they remint them with the same stamp, same coin, same imperial symbol, but less silver inside. At first, nobody notices. The drop from 95 to 90% is tiny, but then it becomes 80%, then 50. By the 200s and 50s CE, the denarius is almost entirely copper. Under Emperor Gallienus, the coin is only 5% silver. And then the system collapses. Merchants refuse to accept debased coins. Prices skyrocket because the money no longer carries value, only a symbol. A sack of wheat that once sold for a single denarius now requires dozens. Soldiers mutiny because their pay buys nothing. The government mints more coins, but the problem worsens. Inflation spirals out of control. The economy implodes. In 301 CE, Emperor Diocletian issues an edict to control prices, the edict on maximum prices. He fixes the cost of over 1,000 goods and services by law, the penalty for violators, death. But it doesn't work. Prices cannot be controlled by decree when the money itself is worthless. Black markets explode. Official trade nearly stops. Rome rots from within by destroying the value of its own currency. When the barbarians arrive at the gates, the empire is already dead. Nobody has just buried it yet. But the story doesn't end there, because the lesson Rome taught was never learned. Centuries later, the Byzantine Empire stands, the continuation of Eastern Rome, and at the heart of its economy is the gold solidus. This coin is so reliable that merchants in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia accept it without question. For centuries, the solidus is the world's most stable currency. But then, the same trap repeats. Byzantine rulers begin diluting the gold. Purity drops, trust cracks, and centuries of stability collapse within a single generation. In 1453, Constantinople falls. But the financial collapse had begun long before. Fast forward. The 16th century Spanish Empire, the empire on which the sun never sets. Tons of gold and silver pour in from the New World. Spain is the wealthiest nation on earth. But here's the problem. The empire doesn't know how to manage its money. Kings borrow excessively to finance wars across Europe. The incoming gold goes directly to debt payments, and the metal itself is diluted. manipulated. In 1557, Spain declares its first bankruptcy, then again in 1560, then 1596, 1607, 1627. 5 major bankruptcies within a century. The richest empire collapses because it cannot manage its own currency. The Ottoman Empire follows a similar path. The akçe, the empire's silver coin, remains stable for centuries, but from the 16th century onward, it's diluted. Purity falls, inflation rises, the economy collapses. By the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire is known as the sick man of Europe, and the roots of that sickness trace back to monetary mistakes made centuries earlier. The pattern is always the same. Empire grows, costs rise, government starts printing more money. At first, nothing happens. Then trust cracks. Then inflation explodes. Then the system collapses, and every empire says, "Our situation is different." None of them are. Now let's move to the 21st century, because this isn't just a history lesson. This is today's story. In 1971, President Richard Nixon ends the gold standard. Until then, the US dollar was tied to gold. In theory, dollars could be exchanged for gold. This kept the government in check. It couldn't print limitlessly. But the Vietnam War, Great Society programs, rising federal spending, the pressure is too much. Nixon severs the gold link. And from that moment, the dollar becomes fiat money, backed not by gold but only by government promise. And once that link is broken, there's no going back. Since 1971, the US dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power. What $1 could buy in 1971 now requires $6 or $7. This isn't about gold, it's about inflation. And the US isn't alone. The euro, the yen, the pound, the lira. Every major currency is in the same position. None are tied to a real asset. All are government promises. During the 2008 financial crisis, this system nearly collapsed. Banks were failing, markets were freezing, and what did governments do? They printed more money, trillions of dollars. In the 2020 pandemic, the same thing. More printing, more debt, more digital money creation, and every time, the same message. This is temporary, this is necessary, this is under control. But history shows it's never temporary. Rome thought it would be temporary. So did Byzantium. So did Spain. So did the Ottomans. None of them could stop. Now, here's the question. What does this mean for you? Because this isn't just a game for governments and central banks. This affects your savings, your retirement fund, your purchasing power. Inflation isn't an accident, it's policy. And what history teaches us is this. Governments can never resist the temptation to debase their currency. Rome couldn't resist it. Modern governments won't either. So how do you protect yourself? The first step is seeing the game. Money is not a concrete value. It's a trust system. And when trust breaks, paper is just paper. Real wealth is stored in things that cannot be printed. Land, gold, skills, means of production. When Rome collapsed, the survivors weren't those holding paper. They were those holding real assets. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it will crush you all the same. Empires fall, currencies collapse, but patterns remain. And that pattern is being written again right now. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it will crush you all the same.